hey, you came back. Or maybe you just skipped the 0 episode and you decided, hey, let's start and see what these guys think about. But welcome to the top 10 of all time as of 2024. Scott?
Yes.
How are you feeling about your list?
Yeah, I love my list because my list is the list of someone can go, hey, we're going to play this. And I'll be like, I'm on my way. Or, hey, we're going to play this one game for 3 hours. And I'll be like, okay, cool.
Nice.
Let's do this.
Any particular metrics or anything before we jump into this? I mean, this list is pretty freeform. What's your top 10?
I know how you are and how you do things. So if they end up eventually finding you on Facebook and start following you or on BGG
especially,
you have a 100 list that you are very systematic and very formal with all your numbers. Mine are, these are the ones I like the most for XYZ reasons. Yeah. And they are in no particular order. It was sort of like, oh yeah, I got to have that on that list because
you have your like number one, right?
Yeah. Cause it's me. It's my game.
I had a feeling of that. But I wanted to, because so essentially you have a number one and then just like a nebulous blob of 2 to 10.
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, how'd you know my nickname in high school?
The nebulous blob of 2 to 10. So like Scott mentioned, I do have a very strict top 100 that I do every year. I've done it every year since 2019, actually.
Wow.
I would say I have played close to 3,000 games in my life at this point. I've been playing ever since I was a kid. I have been seriously in the hobby since 2006. Really, like, truly full-blown serious since about 2010, 12, somewhere around in there. And then it's just never gone away. My top 100 is something that I keep year-over-year data. I watch the fluctuations. I do all that. So mine are very set as of time of this recording. I know a couple of my games... Actually, only like 2 games have stayed the exact same spot for the past couple of years.
Wow.
But about 3/4 of the list has stayed the same since like 2020.
Yeah, see, I got into the hobby right around the time I was getting out of high school because I was with a different youth group and we hung out on the weekends all the time. And so we would Friday night start playing games, make breakfast for Saturday morning, continue playing games into Saturday evening, and I just started buying board games because that's what my weekends were. And now here I am several weeks later and my collection's grown.
Scott, why don't you go ahead and jump us off? What is your number 10?
Well, as we said, it is the amorphous blob of board games. This game I chose because it's just cute. It's fun. It's pretty. It's a beautiful worker placement game that has the cutest little dragons that do the cutest little things in a fantastic, gorgeous, like absolutely artwork is gorgeous. Like I said during our zero shot, I am definitely a theme queen. I guess my number 10 that I'm going to start this puppy off with is from Cardboard Alchemy. It was a hit for the year of 2022, and that's Flamecraft.
I can respect the hell out of that. I think I've got it somewhere in my top like 20 to 30 range. I don't remember its exact position, but it's high on my list. Great game.
Yeah, it's an absolute, and I think what's so funny about this game is that people that kickstarted it or found it on GameFound, they got it and they decided to give money to it because it looked cute. There wasn't a ton of information on it. They didn't do a lot of videos on gameplay. They talked about it for a little while. And then you got this thing and you got this silkscreen printed pieces and the fantastic tokens and the gorgeous artwork. Mm-hmm. And
Sundara Tang did a phenomenal job.
Phenomenal artwork. That game will sit on my shelf until I'm dead. I at this point, as of 2024, I will always have that game. I mean, in fact, they just did a release of Series 2 pieces. Mm-hmm. I bought those because I just love the game that much. And I also, when you like a company and you think they have a really good product, you want to give more money to that company. Just say, I really appreciate what you did. Here's a little more.
You have fans.
And you've got it. I'm definitely fangirling, especially on that game. So yeah, Flamecraft.
I really love Flamecraft for just how incredibly approachable it is. Like, it's not going to be one that like super heavy hardcore gamers are going to look at and be like, yeah, I want to keep playing this.
Right.
Anybody that is a light to medium weight or an omni gamer is going to see just the joy of the simplicity of the actions, of how tight of a game it can be, because I think what really helps Flamecraft, and it's something that I prefer in my games, is it's all positive player interaction.
Yeah, there's no take that
Yeah.
which you had mentioned in your list of things that you don't enjoy. I think that's the other thing that makes it so endearing. It's just the fact it's, yep, we're just trying to help our town out. That's what we're here for. We're little dragons that are trying to help our town. Just so happens that we're also trying to win points and be the best dragon for our town. It's a phenomenal game, and it's a decent price point too.
It's 50.
Yeah, and for as much as you get into it and how
a lot in that box.
There's a lot in the box, and it's well crafted, and that's also nice. That I've spent $50 and gone, oh, buddy, that's not good.
Tighten ourselves down.
Yep.
So my number 10 has normally floated a little higher in my list. I'm actually very surprised it dropped to number 10 for me this year. But when you talk about theme games, this one is just drenched in it. It is the almost undisputed king of emergent narrative in a board game. It is the best legally distinct IP game out there. It's Nemesis from Awaken Realms.
Oh, okay.
Somehow it came out in 2018. Adam Kwapinski did a phenomenal job with it. You can slot in Lockdown here. I do prefer original, but if you sit there and say, hey, we're playing Lockdown, oh darn. It's a game that I have taken to Gen Con. I have taken it to friends' houses. I have canceled D&D nights when there weren't enough people or somebody's going to miss, and instead we played Nemesis. It is just that good. It is one of those big, huge, tons of Kickstarter nonsense in it, but all the Kickstarter nonsense is just modularity. And so if I want to play base game with the Void Seeders and then throw in some of the other stretch goal stuff, like, great, I have that option. And I've actually used everything from both the original and Lockdown campaigns. Absolutely phenomenal game.
That is a really neat game. I think I've only played it a couple times, so I'm not super familiar with it. I know it's a big, beautiful box, though, and there's some fantastic minis that are involved, and there's a lot of people that really enjoy that game, and especially if you enjoy the movie Aliens. So,
and the argument against it, it can be a fragile game because of that strong theme, because ooh, do we want to play friendly? Do we want to play semi-co-op? Like, how do we want to handle that? But so long as you are aware of what the game can do and you have set out at the beginning saying, hey, we aren't going to play semi-co-op, we are just playing full co-op, or hey, I may betray you, that may be a thing that happens, as well as the idea that, hey, the queen just might come out of the bag on the first pull, and if she does, that might end your game very quickly. Some people can absolutely call that a negative to it. I understand that. I think it is a fair criticism of the game. It's one that I don't particularly care about because of how strong the rest of it is.
And it sounds like one of those games that you can also set it up to make sure that that doesn't happen.
To an extent.
To an extent.
Your number 9, sir.
My number 9, I remember when I saw it at Gen Con, I saw a lot of people walking around with it, and I was just like, there is no way in the world that I'm going to buy a game that has to do with watching birds. I thought it was such a ridiculous premise. I could not believe that people were walking around with it and how fast it was flying off the shelves. Now I own the whole thing. I have the big box. I have the art pack, and I'm talking about Stonemeyer's 2019 hit Wingspan.
I know we were basically sold out of it by Thursday night, and we had like those couple of extra random copies we had, but yeah, that thing was gone.
Yeah, and I remember my buddy looking at me. He's like, you always go after the big game of the year. Why aren't you going after that one? I'm like, it's birds, dude. Like, why? I go, what part of me looks like I'm going to be at all interested in collecting birds? And like I said, I have the whole thing.
It's so good.
It's just a really good game. And for those of you who don't know, it's not really set collection. It's definitely engine building. It's a little bit of resource management. It's also, you've got these fantastic little goals, and you're trying to get your goals and try to figure out your opponent's goals. But there's a lot of cards, so there's a lot of goals. And it's so much fun. Especially now that we've got like the in between turns stuff happens, like, oh good, you laid an egg. Now I get to lay an egg. Yeah. And it's fun. It's dumb. It's another one of those, like I said, it's like, hey, Scott, we're going to play Wingspan. Okay.
So I pulled up my list while we were sitting here. Flamecraft is my number 25. Wingspan's my number 22.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a deep and abiding love of Wingspan. At this point, my favorite way to play it is duet mode. But unlike you, I actually really like majority area control stuff.
That's right. That's the new stuff that came out with the Asia set.
Yep.
I have not gotten to play any of the Asia stuff yet.
Oh, it's so good. Visually, they're not my favorite birds, but mechanically for the game, they're my favorite.
Beautiful. What's your number 9?
My number 9 is the one that forced its way onto my list this year, pushed Nemesis down, and actually booted Moonrakers out of my top 10, which was a huge surprise when I did the list this year. I am not a big fan of abstract games. Frankly, my brain just doesn't work the way most abstract games need you to think 2, 3, 9 turns ahead.
Yeah.
I love chess for what it is. I am terrible at chess. So when I played Owari for the first time, Owari is by Michael Schacht. It's from Thundergriff Games. He released it in 2020 to a limited release. It was Kickstarter. It's not easy to find at this point. I paid too much for my copy. But it was one of those games where the first time I played, I'm like, I'm very bad at this, but there's something here. And then I did it again. I'm like, okay, I'm still missing something. And it was one of those games that I knew I shouldn't have liked because, again, the theme is, I can't even call it a theme. There's some pretty pictures in the game. It is an abstract. It is a thinky abstract. It is all this stuff that I normally don't care about, but I just want to keep diving into it. And it turned out to me, once it all clicked, it made perfect sense. It is a beautiful production where you are trying to have area majority within multiple regions on the board. And in the version I tracked down, the deluxe version, there are like 8 boards in there. And what's really interesting about the game is whoever has the most presence in an area is going to score points for everybody being there. So if there's 6/10, great, I'm going to score 6 points. But whoever is in second place scores whatever the first place has. So if there's 6/10 there and 5 of them are mine, you're going to score 5 points by being second. So it's this really interesting balance of, I need to take majority, but I can't create too big of a gap because I don't want to just give my opponents points for literally just sneaking in. But you also need to make sure, because each of the regions are spot limited, that you actually make it in to do that. Really phenomenal choices off of just playing a couple of cards. You go through the game deck twice, there's a couple rounds of scoring, and it just is so wonderful for me. Again, almost nothing about it should work for me, and it just sings.
Yeah, you and I played it, and gorgeous game.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was very pretty. But
Not your game.
It's not my game.
Yeah.
I didn't do bad at it.
No, you did very well.
Yeah, no.
It is also one of the few games that I think scales incredibly well. I like it best at the 1 and 2 player range, but I will happily play it 3, 4, and 5. There's a really interesting dynamic change between the 1, the 2, and the 3 and up count.
Neat.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll get to play that with more people next time.
Hey, you tell me you want to play Owari? Right now, we'll do it.
Don't hold your breath.
All right, Scott, number 8.
Number 8, I love a theme when there's an IP that, of course, I could get behind, because who doesn't want to be a Disney villain? And I had to put it on the list because it is one of those that I think, for accessibility reasons, for how much stupid fun it is. It doesn't matter if I win or lose. I am always up to play 2018's game of Villainous. Because, I mean, if you have the original box, you get to play my girl. You get to play Ursula. And there's nothing like just dealing with poor, unfortunate souls.
So it looks like Villainous has dropped off my top 100.
Okay. But that's like recent. It would be recent because there's been a lot of really good games that have come out in this past year.
Oh, yeah. I think it fell off of this list. It was. I'm a little surprised it's not on there, actually. I think the reason it would have fallen off is the 5 and 6 player count. It's slow. The game can get really, really long. And the newer expansions have been a little weak. We'll be polite and just say they're a little weak. That said, you're right. It's so much fun to play.
Yeah, I definitely think if I want to play that game, it's a great 2-player game. I think I don't want to go any higher than 4.
At this point, I agree.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that the new reworked box only has 4 players in it.
Right.
Doesn't go to 6.
But, I don't know why they did it, but other than hopefully not a cash grab. Hate that.
I really don't think so, because they did a rebalance on the 4 characters that are in there.
Yeah, I think it wasn't the big one that they rebalanced was King John or Prince John.
Prince John, he was one, and Ursula was one too.
Was it Ursula? Oh, yeah.
Plus Ursula is on the cover of the box.
Oh, that's right. Oh, well then.
And it's sparkly.
Well then, okay. Well, we have to end this because I have to apparently go buy a game.
Target.
Yep.
Target. We are not sponsored by you, but if you would like to sponsor us, hey. I like your board game.
I like their selection. They've been doing an incredible job.
Welcome to the Midwest, where we will happily tell you about the deals we get.
Yep. You like my dress? Thank. It has pockets. Yep, that's the thing.
Villainous is a lot of fun. I remember when my wife and I were walking through Target, and she saw the cover for Villainous, and she's like, "What is this?" I don't know. I've never heard of it. And I looked it up on BGG, and it had for BGG a very good rating. I'm like, I mean, it's got good stuff. It's fairly inexpensive. Like, if you want to pick it up, we can play it. If it's bad, we didn't spend too much. And ever since, like I said, I love it. Even though it may not necessarily be in my top 100 anymore, I will happily play it. It's a great game.
Yeah, I have the Marvel one. I don't have everything for the Marvel one, and I have the Star Wars one, just because those are IPs I enjoy, and unfortunately, I'm a little bit of a collector, so
Yes,
it's like I'm like, ooh, I must have it all.
That's also a topic we'll be covering on a future episode.
Yes, it is, which I need to break.
So my number 8 has been consistently number 8 since I played it. And I got to it in 2020, a year after its release. The designer is one that has an incredible pedigree. And I have said this about the game for a very long time. If I could only keep one game in my collection, it would actually probably be this one.
And it's a number 8?
It's my number 8. I know. It's Glenmore 2 Chronicles. So I've never played the original Glenmore. I've only played the sequel reworked thing. What I really like about Glenmore 2, it is a tile-laying rondel set collection game. And one of the things I've definitely learned about myself this year after playing some other stuff is I really like a good rondel. And this one has that. It plays very well, again, in that 1, 2, 3, 4 player count. The solo comes from the expansion, so I would say, like, I'm keeping my copy because it has the expansion in there. But it is so fascinating that the core system is streamlined and smooth, and you can teach it to almost anybody that's been playing games for a little bit. But the Chronicle system that they put into it, where, okay, now on top of everything else, we're going to have a boat race. Or there's going to be a mountain in the middle of the track that maybe you can try and be King of the Hill on. Or, ooh, now we're going to deal with historical figures with the penny mobs and have to figure out how all that wraps into it. The game is incredibly flexible, but it's incredibly modular. Two things I very, very much like in my games. And it just has that, oh man, how did that happen? Like, oh, the tiles came out this way. Really interesting. And the way the game ends, there are 4 scorings where you are scoring relative to the other players. Mm-hmm. So at any one point, if I have the most workers on my home castle and you have less than me, then I'm going to score based on the variance that we have. Okay. So when the next scoring round comes up, you might shove all your guys over. You might walk all your guys over. And now all of a sudden I'm losing that category when I could have been winning it. And after the 4th one of those, the game's done. But that one doesn't trigger until you pass the end tile. And so there's this really interesting mechanism that, I mean, you've seen it in Tokaido of whoever's furthest behind gets to keep going.
Yeah.
Until you cross that game end tile, you can keep taking tiles. But the game is aware of that as well. Because if you are sitting at 30 tiles in your display and I'm only at 20, you're going to get hammered for having 10 more than I do. So it's all of it is this really interesting balance of where do I take the extra turn? Is it worth it? Ooh, I'm going to jump ahead like 4 turns because I want that tile and I'm going to see if my opponent take the bait. Really just great game.
I have not played that one. Using rondels for movement or like to choose what your actions are?
Generally speaking, for me, action selection. Some really high points there. Glenmore, Viscounts of the West Kingdom, and Crusaders that will be done. I know people really like Trajan. I haven't gotten to play Trajan yet.
Okay. I've only played one game that had a rondel in it, so that's an interesting little system. So yeah, we haven't played that one yet. So
I will happily table it.
Of course you will. I mean, I'm pretty sure anything that's on either of our lists, they'll be like, I will be happy to play that game.
I made you play Awari once. I know I'm never going to get you to play it again. And honestly, that's fine. So that's why there may be some like, I'll happily play it with you right now because I will enjoy playing Awari, but you won't.
Yeah, very much so. Very much that.
With that, what is your number 7?
Number 7, I love abstract games. Abstract games are one of my favorites. I love, you were talking about the whole idea of having to like plan several steps out can be sometimes a struggle. And 2005 released a game that is very much can be such a struggle. And sometimes it leads you to having no choices and unfortunately ending your own game from Calliope Games, Suro.
Yeah.
I love the Suro set. I have all three.
The original is by far the best.
But the original, like, if you want to do yourself a favor, get yourself Suro. Suro is a fantastic tile laying game where you have a small collection of tiles that have a path on them, and you follow that path. You follow that path to the end.
My number 97. It is in my top 100.
Wow.
Realistically, its design is like a 7, but I give it a nostalgia 10. So
Yeah. Well, and it is one of those that, like, it still sits. I feel it still has weight to be on the table, to be on a person's shelf. There's nothing else out there that I feel does what it does as well as it does it.
It also has that, I mean, now it's 20 years old.
Yeah.
But it has that wonderful agelessness, this timelessness about it. You could tell somebody, oh, this is from 800. And they probably believe it because it's so simple.
Oh, yeah. But it is. It is such a pretty game. My goodness.
My one game group, and if any of them are listening to this, you know who you are. We tend to break games. So there are 35 tiles in Suro, technically 36 if you include the dragon.
Right.
And when you fill the board, it shouldn't happen. Like, it just shouldn't happen.
There should be one person left, or you're both flying off the end.
We filled the board, and I was one of 2 people that literally ran the whole thing. And I will say my favorite way to play Suro is cooperatively.
Oh, yeah.
Where you just sit. You start next to somebody else. You say, like, we're going to play together as long as we can until one of us is forced off the board. So much fun.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that is one of my favorite ways to play. Because the one mechanic is if a person plays a tile and you happen to be touching that tile when they play it, you fall on the track. You go whatever direction that they send you. So that's part of the thing, because it turns, it has a twist, so you can sit there and rotate and be like, cool, I know where this goes. This is going to take you right off the board, and your game's done, and I'm still going.
But because the game is so quick, I don't care that you can send me off the board. Because part of it is going to be incidental of, oh, I ended up near you. And part of it could be, all right, I'm doing this to just survive. Sorry. Like, the amount of maliciousness is not there. It's also so easy to be like, all right, shuffle the tiles, we're going again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the replay is beautiful. Because you're literally going, cool. I mean, throw them all in the bag and just shuffle them up that way, or...
Yep.
Yeah.
However you do it.
Fantastic.
My number 7 is going to be one that I am going to be... Actually, a couple of these I'm going to be pretty particular on which version, and number 7 is one of them. It is from Greater Than Games. It is one that took the hobby by storm when it came out, especially because games like Marvel Champions did not exist at the time.
Oh.
And it is Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Yep, I knew you were going to say Sentinels of the Multiverse.
I am specifically saying the Enhanced Edition. The original's fine. I have not played Definitive. That's a whole thing. But I have the giant tomb. I think it is an appropriate term for this game, the tomb, where it is the all-in box. I have everything for it.
Same.
And it is just so much fun. It did that legally distinct superhero thing before it really took off in board gaming. Superheroes have always been kind of a hit or miss until the past couple of years when Marvel went nuts. And so for a long time, Sentinels was our choice. And I understand when I say the Enhanced Edition, people are going to groan and roll their eyes, and I get it, because there's some fiddliness and there's a lot of logistics to take care of. But I have played it so much and taught it to so many people that one of the greatest compliments I've ever received was a buddy sitting there saying to his cousin, just sit down and play it. You won't even notice everything's going on because Mark will take care of it for us. Like, I can just make that game run that fast, and I adore it.
Yeah, Sentinels of the Multiverse is definitely another one of those games that's like, yeah, let's pull it out. I think the only reason why I haven't pulled it out is because I have the whole thing and haven't gotten to play all of it.
It's not a game that travels.
No.
It's too heavy. It's too big.
Heavy, it's too big.
Even for me in the car I have, it's just simply too big to travel. But that idea of everybody picks a legally distinct hero, and then you pick someplace that you're going to fight whatever crazy villain you want to.
Yep.
And I remember when all those sets started coming out, and especially when Shattered Timelines hit, and Iron Legacy came out and started punching us all in the face. Like, mwah.
Oh, yeah, it was beautiful.
Absolutely a wonderful game. I know the Definitive Edition exists. I have way too much money sunk into the other one to try and get tempted by it. But a great universe. I'm very much looking forward to Freedom 5 coming out. Hopefully, finally this summer. It's only like 2 years late at this point. Number 6.
I've already brought it up, so I'm not even gonna mess around with it. It's Sentry, and of course for me it's
really
gonna be the Gollum edition. I I really love Sentry. And I mean, you murdered me the last time we played.
Yeah, man.
But
At the end of that game, I thought you're like, oh, he does not like this game.
no. I still love this
I
game.
got a couple of early good
You
cards.
got some really good cards. Like, that's the whole thing is, it's like, once you grabbed those early cards, I knew my game was done. Like, and I was just like, I'm going to continue to play this out because there's nothing that I can do about it. And oh well, them's the breaks. And I think that's the whole thing is with some games you just have to be okay that sometimes luck is not your favor, and you just kind of have to, well, next time. And that was one of those instances where it was, well, next time.
It's my number 56. I love it.
I think this is the big one is it's a beautiful deck builder.
Engine builder.
Engine builder. Yes, excuse me. It is an engine builder. Yes, you're bringing cards into a thing and collecting gems and trading gems and upgrading gems, and it's fantastic. I think because it's so simplistic, you can understand this is what I need. I get this, and it gives me this, and I can teach that to an 8-year-old.
I have taught it to some very inexperienced people, and they had a great time with it.
Yeah, and especially if you get the Gollum edition, I will say it's fun artwork.
I got them as they released. And so I had the original Spice Road, Trading in the Mediterranean, or Trading in the Middle East look about them. My wife liked it, but I was like, you know what? I really think I'll be able to get this table more if I swap to Golem. So I did a trade with somebody for their Golem, and they took my Spice Road. And now it just gets tabled infinitely more, because that little bit, like the fun artwork of the Golems, my actual quote unquote thematic issue with Spice Road is, why are the colors what they are? Why does saffron turn into cinnamon, or whichever they are? It doesn't matter. Right. Whereas in Golem, you just say like, yeah, yellow goes to blue. Why? I don't know. It just does.
It just does.
It's to green and then blue and then pink. I don't. It doesn't matter. But that's the thing. It doesn't matter.
And that's the thing is, because of the fantasy aspect of it, it's a lot more forgiving.
You can hand wave it a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think now, even though the artwork for Century Spice Road is very pretty,
it's boring.
It's boring. There's nothing attracting me to the
table. A lot of beige.
It's a lot of beige. There's a lot of muted colors. A lot of very muted jewel colors, and you're just like, okay, great. Even the dark golems that are on cards still have bright spots because the gems are glowing.
And they stand out because they are on a palette inverted from the others.
Very much so.
So
yeah, so it's a fun engine builder. So go get it.
Yeah.
What's your 6?
My number 6 is a game that I liked well enough. And then I added its 2 expansions. And then I've never taken them out. I have never bothered to teach without those expansions because I think they just simply are that easy to add in. It takes a good worker placement game to a pretty much, for me, perfect version of a sandbox game. And that's Raiders of the North Sea. Like you were saying, bright colors, easy to understand. It is the high point of clear, understandable symbology in a game. Even though I'm hit or miss on some of the other Garfield games, it is the one thing I know I can sit down and I will know exactly what's going on. That said, this is another one where I am very specific. This is Raiders of the North Sea. Raiders of Scythia, I do not like they are anywhere near as well. It's beige, it's boring, and it has incomprehensible symbology in comparison. And it just baffles me that they drop the ball on it. I like the fact that Scythia has the ability to kind of be like a Raiders 1.3 without needing the expansions, but it's still missing a lot. It never got its expansions. Yeah, Raiders of the North Sea is so unique in its worker placement because you will take 2 actions on your turn. The first being whatever worker you're holding on to of one of the 3 colors, black, gray, or white, you will put it down, take the action at whatever strength the action tells you, and then somewhere else on the board you're going to take a worker off, and you will take that action at that color strength, but now you've also preset what your next turn, the first half of your next turn is going to be based on the color you picked up. What's really interesting about the game is that as the raids go on and you explore more and you do more, you will watch just the strength of the workers cycle out because eventually they're going to be locked off and now you're only dealing with white and gray. And so some of those early really strong bonuses that happen if you have a black worker, you can't access them anymore.
Right.
Really interesting arc. It plays in the 60 to 90 minute range. Naturally, I'm going to say I generally play in the 3 to 4 player range. I really enjoy it at 5 and 6. It can be long. at 5 and 6. So I don't necessarily recommend it at that play range. But if I have those extra 2 people, like, it's fine. We like the game. Great. We're in. Yeah. And then, like I said, the expansions add so many different little things. Like, you have the mead for dice mitigation, and you have quests. So if you don't want to get the resources to go and attack a fortress, you can go do quests, or you can chase down rogue jarls, all kinds of stuff. Really just a great midweight Euro game with a worker placement selection system that I've never seen since. And the game came out in 2015.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That is nuts.
Yeah.
Holy cow. That sounds very interesting. I'm glad that you like that game. I haven't played that one in a while. It's one of those that doesn't always hit the table. It's very interesting. Like, the more that we go with our list, I'm like, I need to get these back out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So are we going to do what we kind of said about with our top 5 to see if we can get people to guess? I think I'm going to struggle more guessing yours since you're more broad, and I'm definitely going to be more simple.
That's fair. I think you know me well enough that when I talk about my top 5,
okay,
they should make sense.
Okay.
I think they will be easy enough for you to guess. But yeah, I'm fine to guess.
Okay, we try this. Okay, so my number 5 came out in 2018. I had missed its Kickstarter, but got to meet the team at Gen Con and play the demo, fell in love with the demo, stood there in front of the man, and hopped on GameFound to get my copy because I did the late pledge, and so they were like, I was like the second printing of the game. The fact that it took a classic game and spun it on its head with a little bit of customization, and I just and I've got more coming, and I'm super excited for it. So have you figured it out? Maybe not.
Is it not Marvel United?
It's not Marvel United. Marvel United would not be on my top 10. It's a good game.
Interesting. I was expecting it to be there.
No. I love it, but I love it just for an IP, you know.
Boy, you've got me there.
So I've talked about it multiple times, and I will give you the 2-word phrase that I use for this game all the time. Battle Yahtzee.
It's Dice Throne.
It's Dice Throne. I love Dice Throne.
You threw me when you said it took a classic and twisted. I'm like, what does he... Oh, I didn't realize Dice Throne was that old. I thought it was like 2020.
No.
Crazy.
It was 2015. So Dice Throne, in all honesty, if you're still with us, it basically think of Street Fighter meeting Yahtzee, and you have a character deck, and as you get your deck, you have your battle points. You start putting battle cards onto your board to upgrade your abilities, and then they broke their own mold. They gave us a second set, and then all of a sudden we were expecting chapter 3, and they sit there like, hey, now you get to do these characters and you get to play them cooperatively in a dungeon delve.
Really want to try that mode.
That will be the one that I bring.
Yeah.
And when I say I've got all of it, I've got all of it. I have the little extra, which is Santa versus Krampus. I have Marvel Dice Throne. The fact that all the characters are so well done. I love Dice Throne. I love throwing dice. It's the clicky-clack math rocks. There's no better sound to me in the world. And then all of a sudden you sit there like, oh, hey, you get to play that character that you really, really like. And then now you're going to play it as a character that grows, that you have a little bit of. There's one of the things I had on a list of games I enjoy is campaign. And the fact that Dice Throne Adventures has a campaign mode is beautiful.
I have only gotten to play it with you the once. I really want to play more of it. I did not do very well. I like clickety-clackety math rocks. They do not like me.
No, they do not.
They really do not. Which is why Push Your Luck has something that has drastically fallen for me. Roxley Games is so good at production that it makes that game, which could be extremely fiddly, because it's interesting if you look at kind of the evolution to Dice Throne, because you can certainly make the argument of Star Wars Epic Duels, which eventually became Unmatched, leading on to its things, and then you kind of get to Dice Masters, and then eventually you get there, and then you can see how it kind of back influenced Unmatched. There's some really neat stuff in that system, and I really want to try more of it.
Yeah, that is definitely one I am willing to drag everything over here for.
You have a set of it right there.
Oh yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, great game. So my number 5.
Okay, now let me get my investigative hat.
Designed and made by who has to be the friendliest person in the hobby. It was designed as a bait and switch to get his wife to play board games with him. Because I can tell you, I have gotten my wife to play a number of board games because of the Victorian Regency theme. I don't know that you've actually played it yet.
Because the only thing I can think of is Love Letter, but that would, I don't know,
It
that
is
would not be on
not.
your, that would
Also,
not be on
that's
your
Renaissance, not Regency. Love Letter is actually in my top 100. I have some deep and abiding nostalgia for it, but no, it is Obsession,
Oh, no, never played it, haven't seen it.
which is honestly, for who we are, for our friendship, I have failed. Obsession is high theme, just drenched all the way through, where you are a down on your luck Regency era family that you are trying to come back up into the good graces of noble society. And so you are expanding your manor through some tile placement, and you are taking actions to invite guests to your estate so you can gain renown and money, but you better have the service to be able to, make sure that they're willing to come to you. It is one of those games that
Lady Agatha will only come if you serve cucumber sandwiches.
essentially, because Lady Agatha might need 2 or 3 servants, which is a ton. It is one of those games where passing is painful to take, but it has to be timed perfectly. Because if you don't get when you refresh all your stuff just right, you can put yourself behind the 8 ball a little bit. The amazing upstairs downstairs expansion largely fixed that issue. Depending on who is learning the game, I may teach it with upstairs downstairs, but it certainly adds a few extra concepts that are like, wait a minute, hang on, what does this servant do? When I learned the game, legitimately, I restarted it twice, thinking there has to be more to this. It can't be as easy as take a tile, put a worker, play some cards, go. And so I was learning the solo mode, and I restarted it multiple times only to realize, no, the game is really that smooth. But the complexity all comes from when you're going to play your servants, how you're going to bring your guests, which tiles are worth using multiple times because it means that another tile's not going to flip over by the end of the game. Amazing decision space that is all just fueled by this absolutely drenched theme.
Wow.
It's one that I think you will really like.
Oh, yeah, I'm very intrigued on that. You talk about playing tiles, putting pieces, almost reminds you a little of Mad King Ludwig. I mean, just on the tile aspect,
no,
but
and
I know there's lots of different...
You're not inherently wrong. The tile placement is much more simple than what I'm leading it out to be, because basically you buy your tiles from a market and it goes into whatever row in your manor.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you take your action, you physically pick up the tile, put it on the thing, place the workers on. So it's not like you're building in a castle the way you are in
Right.
Mad King Ludwig, but the knife fight of the market and trying to watch, what does my opponent need, is very much something that's in this game.
Gotcha. Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot. Number 4 for me. I know you will probably laugh that this is on my top list. This is by far my favorite worker placement game. I have its expansions. I don't have its promos yet. It is an older game. It actually came out in 2012. That's one of the first
Yeah, that's early.
worker placement games that have ever come out. I don't want to totally give it to you, but yeah, I think I almost have. It's an IP that both you and I know very well. And I think my favorite thing about this game is the fact that there's so many things. So there's a lot of replay value of it because there's so many buildings that you can have into this game to make up for spaces. And just...
Oh, is it Lords of Waterdeep?
It is Lords of Waterdeep. Wizards of the Coast brought out Lords of Waterdeep in 2012 and then had their expansion, I want to say 2015. You get to play one of the Lords of Waterdeep. You are hidden from the other players, so you have your own goals and machinations as to how you're going to play this game. It's just a fun worker placement, and you're achieving different missions and getting end goals. And the whole thing is, it's like I've played games where I've been behind everybody for the longest period of time, but because no one realized that I needed all of the piety and the arcane missions, and that's all I did and that's all I accomplished. And you fed right into my leader's hands, and I've come back to just wipe people out. So much fun. I love it.
It's one that I've played. I would be very interested to see what a second edition would look like because I think it has some production issues.
Oh,
2012 makes sense.
Yeah, 2012.
That said, I think my issue with the game is that I came to it so late. I didn't play it for the first time until like 2 years ago.
Oh.
And so I had dozens of worker placement games.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for what it did, especially at the time it did it, very important because it also has that crossover appeal of that was one of the first major ways that role-playing like TTRPG people would come over into the board gaming side of the hobby stores. I will say the one thing that I absolutely cannot stand are the required quests. like, oh, hey, before you do anything else, you got to go take care of this, whatever those things are called.
That's a simple thing of just deciding to pull those out.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the required quests because that's a take that up. I mean, it slows you down.
And that's my problem, is I feel like it just unnecessarily slows the game. It just pads it.
Yeah.
But the Scoundrels of Skullport,
Scoundrels of Skullport.
Great expansion.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Really good expansion. I have both of it, and I think the IP is what attracted me to it. But the whole thing is that I actually played it digitally first, and then went, oh, I need to find this game, and happened to find it, and found it at a reasonable price, and went all in.
I am assuming that you have since replaced your cubes.
I have not yet.
So the one company that I do have a bit of connection to is MeepleSource. That's who I go to Gen Con with for Stonemaier.
Oh, yeah.
They have some great looking pieces for Lords of Waterdeep.
Yeah. I would
not sponsored by them. Cynthia, talk to me, but we are not sponsored by them.
Yeah.
My number 4
Okay.
was my number 1 for a long time. It shocked me when it became number 2. It then absolutely gutted me when it fell to number 4. And I don't honestly know that it will fall any further than this. Like, I love Obsession, but I don't think Obsession will overtake my love for this.
The only game that I can think of on your list would be Scythe.
And it is, in fact, Scythe. Scythe was one of those games that I first played in 2018. Like I said, I've been in the hobby for a long time, but there was this couple-year gap where, even though I was playing board games, I was entirely unaware of the Kickstarter space, which meant that I was entirely unaware of Stonemaier. I had played Euphoria early on, and had just the absolute worst possible teach of that game. Put me off of it for a long time. Now it's one of my all-time favorites. But when Scythe was presented to me as alternate history, post-World War I, area control, engine building, interesting machinations of how is this faction going to work against that faction? How does my player board work with my faction? Because all that is also asymmetrical. And then you put in Invaders from Afar, and that's an absolutely wonderful extra couple of factions. You have Wind Gambit that you ignore, and then you have the absolutely stellar Rise of Fenris, which frankly is probably the best campaign period in a board game, at least for me.
Okay.
It is everything I wanted out of an area control game without realizing that's what I wanted. And there are still tiny little touches that I'm amazed more games haven't stolen. The key one being when you produce resources, they produce onto the board. It's one of the reasons I actually don't like the Wind Gambit, because you're able to take the resources and kind of keep them safe in the air on your airship. Because part of the game is, ooh, you have a lot of oil over there and I need that oil for my mechs. Am I going to come chase you? Just really tight mechanisms. And yeah, like, I know there are people that know the game backwards, forwards, inside out, will beat me as Roosevelt in 13 turns. I get all that exists. I don't really care. I love being in the world. I think it is so much fun to actively play and see how everything balances out. Even if you're not using the modular board, the board is the same. It's the board every time. That's not a problem for me, because there are just so many interesting things that can happen throughout the course of that game.
That is one of the games that I don't want to touch with a 10-foot ball.
And makes me sad.
And it's just,
I understand about Awari. Scythe, that one makes me sad.
I played with you and I didn't do bad. I think I got 4th out of the 5 of us. Or actually, no, I think I got 3rd. I think it was our buddy and then you and then me. I think I beat 2 other people. And it was just kind of like, okay.
You don't like area control.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of war and area control type stuff. So yeah, it's along those eras. I see why it has a place, and I feel that place is valid, and I think it's a great game, just not for me.
And that's totally fair. Number 3.
This one is a nostalgia grab. Probably one of the major reasons why I am still in the hobby, because I love this game so much. I have almost every single, I'm going to give it away with this, map.
I was going to say, I was 95% sure it's Ticket to Ride.
It's Ticket to Ride. I started playing Ticket to Ride because it's just a fun game. It's geography, and I do really bad at geography. To get to learn and... Like, I'm gonna explain it badly. I'm gonna explain it badly.
It's my 81. It's a point-to-point. You're building routes across whatever country.
And it's so fun to sit there and hear inadvertently someone scream or curse your name because you take Nashville to Atlanta. It's one spot, and if you're the first player and you take it, someone is going to curse you and figure out how to put a hex on you, because... It
has that brilliance. You're able to place your train, so long as you got the cards for it. You can place your train anywhere on the map at any point.
Yeah.
So even if you are the first player, you may not necessarily take that spot unless you're being spiteful. For a game that is as just water-worn smooth,
Yeah.
there's a lot of space in that game.
Yeah. And I think what's so neat is trying to figure out the strategy, because since it has been on the field for so long, because I mean it was created in 2004, it's got 2 decades on player tables, and it is from Days of Wonder, just so that everyone out there knows, in case somehow you haven't heard of this game. The sheer fact of my favorite thing to do is to get people that play this and have played this game a bit and play the game of either we do what tickets you get or what tickets you have to take. You have to take every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no, I get 5 and I only keep 3. It's, you've got 5, but also it's trying to figure out where people are going. There can be a little bit of a take that episode. I typically play it where I don't play mean.
That also is influenced by player count, though. The
Right.
more players, the meaner it gets.
What ends up happening is eventually you have to give someone over. I try very hard not to, because then it's not fun, and I want to have fun. But it's really neat to sit there and be like, I have to go from Vancouver over to New York, and I sit there and I get there by going through Santa Fe and then down to New Orleans and up to Chicago, but then I still go over to St. Paul, Minnesota, and then come around to New York. You know, I could have done this 6 different ways, but also with that path, I've also completed 3 tickets. It's a beautiful game.
It's been in my top 100 every year. It's number 81 right now. It has been as high as 63, but it normally floats in that like high 70s range because it is just that good.
Yeah.
There are games that are classics that have shown their age, shown their mechanisms out, that I don't really want to play again. I have been playing Ticket to Ride since 2008, I think. It's the first time I got to it, and I will happily play it to this day.
And I think what also is really nice is that each of the different maps that they've created, they all have at least one mechanism that is completely different than any of the other ones, and it's well balanced.
There is not a just blanket pick a Ticket to Ride. There are some bad ones. Rails and Sails is not very good.
That is the one I do not like.
It's not good. And it has my hometown on one side of the board, and I still don't like it. My number 3 was another content creator recommendation. It is easily the most esoteric theme in my collection. Meets that theme perfectly. It is not 1, but it is 2 levels of area control, hand management, multi-use cards. One of those ones, again, where the expansions are great because of the modularity of base game, straightforward, simple. Add in 1 expansion, all right. Add in 2 expansions, and now you're sweating, and you put in all the expansions, and your brain is literally sparking on fire at the end of it. You have played this. It is one of my absolute favorite box covers.
The only thing I could think of, I'm going to get it wrong, is that one Endless Winter game.
No, it is not Endless Winter.
Thank God. Okay.
It is from David Sherkop and Mighty Boards. It is Petrichor.
Oh, okay.
Because in Petrichor, you are a rain cloud, and you are performing area majority where you are raining raindrops onto the crops below. And depending on
I did well
what
at that
situation, you beat me the first time we played.
Yeah.
Esoteric is the theme that comes to mind, because how do you abstractly inhabit a rain cloud? But I went in for all the upgrades and all the extra stuff for Petrichor because it's just that gorgeous. It is a game that is not received well enough by enough people. I honestly think it's a theme problem. Wait, you're what? You're doing what? Trust me. Sit down with me. We'll play the base game. Even with 4 people and teaching it, we'll be done in 45 minutes. It is so smooth and so quick. Depending on how ridiculous and crunchy you want it, you can get it there.
Yeah, I do remember that was a very hard theme to get around. But I feel people can just pull their mind away from the actual theming on some stuff. It's so loose that you're like, okay. This is the fact
that you can go from snowfall, winter on one action, and then summer and heat rays the next action.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's some disconnect there, but it's so good.
Yeah, I think that would probably be like one of the few area majority games that I've played that I actually enjoyed. Enough to play it again right away? My number 2, I got attached to this game because I was on a road trip, and I have a habit of, when I'm on a road trip, I go to local game stores, and especially during the pandemic, it was actually, I picked this up literally just as things were starting to open up, I went to this game store and was treated very nicely. And, they asked me, like, why were you here? And I was like, you're a game store. You're still open. You survived the pandemic. I'm here to give you money to make sure that I can help you continue. And they went, oh my God, we love you. I saw this game and I was like, wow, this is really pretty. The fact of you're using the clear backed cards and the gorgeous layers. Yeah, canvas. It's so pretty. And you get to make these really just fun, goofy, kooky paintings and score points on them based on composition or textures or any number of different goals. My God. The replay value of that game is probably one of the highest I've seen in a while because there's just so many end goal points. And then they've done 2 expansions where you've got double-sided cards now.
Neat idea. Very cool idea.
And I haven't seen too many games that do it. There's been some, not a ton. I can think of Custom Heroes. They've done it.
A lot of the early John D. Clare stuff. Mystic Vale.
Yes,
Dead
Mystic
Reckoning.
Vale is the other one.
Not many people have done that system. I will say almost backed all 3 campaigns.
Well, you don't have to because I did.
I then canceled my pledge for all 3 of the campaigns. I had some misgivings about it. I'm like, I think it's beautiful and I like the idea. Then I got to play your copy. And I am glad that I canceled all 3 of those campaigns.
Really?
It was one of the biggest disappointments I've ever had.
Wow.
It's gorgeous. I think Reflections is an easy add. You put that in if you want to play the game. It's like you were saying about Awari. I understand its place. I understand how it is a game for certain people. Or sorry, you said about Side, not Awari. It is not a game for me. I don't even necessarily have an issue with how light it is. It just, when I played it, I felt hamstrung by, oh, you have 5 cards in your hand, you must now make a painting. Oh, you only have these available because this is what's part of the flop. Okay, I guess I'm going to make a painting that I don't like. If I am playing it without playing for points, if I'm just playing to make cool things, I have more fun with it that way. But I also don't think the art in the game is strong enough to make me want to play it just for that.
Yeah, I just loved it.
I bounced off of it. Totally get why people love it.
Yep.
So my number 2 is, for me, the best second edition of a game ever.
Okay.
It fixed literally every problem I had with the first one, to the point where when I go back and I play the first one, I actively hate it. I hated it when I played it in its original form. And then I played the new one, like, this is so good. It completely changed my mind on the designer.
Libertalia.
It is Libertalia Winds of
Gaelic. That was going to be my number 6, and then I remembered Suro.
I know, I have the clear Stonemaier bias. I have 2 of them in my top 10. I have talked about multiple other ones. Again, like, my history with them is blatant, it's bare, it's obvious, I understand that. But I cannot tell you how much I hated the original Libertalia.
I've seen the artwork. It's not pretty.
I agree with you.
There's nothing appealing about it.
I liked the grim, gritty pirates. Beyond that, I don't like the original game. I have a real issue with the tiebreaker system being just printed on each card. If you're playing the black player, and I don't know these numbers exactly, but say you play the 15 card, that is just going to be the number 3 in a tiebreak situation, just because that's what's printed on the card. Don't like the tiebreaker in it. There's a lot of production issues in it, and it just feels targetedly mean in a way that Winds of Gale Crest elides over. I very much prefer the bright colors. I love the art. I think it is a more fun, more vibrant world to be in. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm sitting in Tortuga the way I do in the original, but I'm also having fun. So there's that as well. The big chunky clicky clacky tiles, the fact that they added in the extra 10 rolls into the second edition, the fact there's a promo set coming out, which I'm very excited about. The fact that there is more coming is wild, because that is not a Paolo Mori move. Depending on what happens, I mean, you're going to see the same 18 cards as everybody else through the course of the game.
Yeah.
But just the way that those same 18 cards come out, that can change the game. And even if they magically dealt out the exact same way, depending on the way the treasure tiles lay out, totally different game. When I talk about a game that is infinitely replayable, it is Libertalia. I think it is fascinating at the solo player count. It is a knife fight in a phone booth at 2 players, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, happy to play any moment.
Oh, yeah.
That is the game that it came out in 2022. I got my copy a little early so that way I could teach it for Gen Con, and I have been obsessed with it since. I just can't talk highly enough about it. It allows you to take that-ish mechanics, but because you can't specifically target people, I mean, you can with the sabers, but on the actual flop of cards, like, my brute's just going to take out whoever's on the far right. It might be himself.
Right.
It's so good. It's so variable. I know we are weirdly, seemingly in the minority. I think it is beautiful, and I love the artwork.
Oh, it's a phenomenal game. The fact that they're all animals, anthropomorphic animals, and all of them are so uniquely created. It's a great game.
Now, I'm curious to find out what you say about your number one, because you know my number one already.
Oh, okay.
You've played my number one. You played my number one a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
But what, pray tell, is yours?
My number one is a classic. Technically, I'd almost consider it almost like the very first second edition of a game. Almost like second edition and expansion of a game.
4D chess.
Yeah, because we know I love chess. It was created by a company that is no longer around anymore.
Doesn't help me at all.
I know, but you played the original. As much fun as the original was, I'm always a person who likes more options and just that whole deduction aspect of the game and trying to keep everything all structured and remembering everything that you gave out to people.
You're talking about Mysterium.
I am not talking about Mysterium.
No.
My number one game that I would drive all the way to my house, because mind you, I live 45 minutes away from you, and would drive 45 minutes back to play this game, but we'd have to have a couple of people because it is really hard to play Clue Master Detective with two people.
I have the Master Detective set over there.
Okay,
It's my childhood copy.
Okay, so someone stole my childhood copy. So I had in my house, I have 5 different Clues.
Okay.
I used to own Clue Museum Caper.
Never gotten to play that. Really want to.
It was a lot of fun.
Because that's arguably one of the first moments of hidden movement
games. Yeah. Yes. So those of you who don't know, Clue Master Detective, you have got 10 suspects, you've got 12 rooms, and you now have 8 weapons.
The little poison bottle is
the little
so
poison
cool
bottle.
Yeah.
Like the horseshoe and all the different pathways. In the classic, I was either plum or mustard. In Master Detective, I always took Sergeant Gray.
How did we have the same characters? Man, you could have given me a handful of darts. I wouldn't have thrown one at that. You don't have to drive because I've got my copy here.
Beautiful.
And my wife will play Clue at the drop of a hat.
Phenomenal. There's not a lot of people that like Clue. And then to sit there and make it bigger, they're like, ugh. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I even picked up Clue Ravnica when Magic the Gathering did it. I was just like, yeah, I'm buying this.
There is something about us, and I actually love that it's your number one, because so much of our hobby looks back at what we grew up on or the big box stuff and just says, that has no place anymore. I can't believe you like that type of thing. Yeah. Again, I would never have everything we've played. I would have never guessed Clue was your favorite. It was one of my absolute favorites as a kid. Second, pretty much only to the Omega Virus. I am really happy to hear you say it because it's something that we've all played. We all are able to connect to.
Yeah.
It's something that is in almost everybody's house.
Yeah. You could still go get it. It's still at a reasonable price. You could get it in an IP that you really, really enjoy. I mean,
the Golden Girls, actually pretty fine.
Oh, actually, I've seen that one.
We've got it over there.
Yeah, because I think one of the weapons is Sophia's purse.
Because you're trying to figure out who stole the last piece of cheesecake.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Which, hi, Sophia. I will always suggest it was Sophia. And I think that's the whole thing is like, I always loved Clue, and I still love Clue. Clue is what, as much as I sit there and talk about Ticket to Ride getting me in the hobby, but it had to start somewhere. And it wasn't Monopoly. I mean, I had Monopoly, but Monopoly wasn't the one that I didn't want to play Monopoly all the time.
It's one of those games where, like, I can sit here, I will talk about my entire top 10, drop of a hat. You don't want to talk about board games? Well, if you mention board games, we're talking about board games now. I'm not going to be able to teach those to my boys for quite some time.
They're going to at least be teenagers or preteens.
And we'll be teaching my older son, he's only 3 right now, but we'll be teaching him Clue, first, second grade?
Yeah.
Because it is approachable. It is fun.
Fifth is great, yeah. And the whole thing is it's going to make him think. It's not Monopoly where nothing's wrong with Monopoly if you like Monopoly.
If you play Monopoly by the rules.
Right.
As printed, it's a cutthroat game. House rules ruin that game.
Yeah, Clue, it's deduction. It's figuring out what to give a person to make sure that they don't get enough information.
Really interesting choice. Would you never guess that?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Boy, I don't know if you can get more of a complete opposite. I have routinely questioned whether or not this should stay my number one game because I play it once a year.
I played it once a year with you as well.
And you've played with me a couple times now.
Yep, I did better this year than I did last year.
You did really well this year.
I was tied for...
You were tied for second.
Tied for second.
I mean, you were still half the score track behind me, but you were tied for second.
You almost made me cuss when you said that, decided to throw that out there.
It is 4X. It's space. It is Fantasy Flight. It's the game that non-super heavy wargamers are afraid of. And I don't think they need to be. But when you hear, oh, the game is like 8 to 12 hours, Twilight Imperium 4, man. When I mentioned Nemesis at the start of the list, I said it's the almost undisputed king of emergent narrative. That's because of Twilight Imperium. The game is good enough. There are issues. There's some stuff with it. But what happens on the table leads to magic above and around the table. Sorry.
No, I was really going to say, for being a genre that I do not like, that is one, I think you almost snapped your head when I was like, well, yeah, I'm in. And you were like...
I really did not expect you to play this year.
Because the whole thing is it wasn't horrible. And I think it's the whole player action. Because the whole thing is that I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to Jason, but I'm also talking to...
Well, you are talking to me face to face, but you're texting 3 other people around the table, trying to build plans to take me down.
Oh, yeah.
And I did win this year. I was happy to win this year. I did not plan to win this year because I was planning, I'm just going to go to Mechatol. I'm going to take the point because I want the agenda phase to start because the agenda phase is always so interesting and I love it so much.
Yeah.
And then I'll get off of it. And then I was able to sit there. And I was able to do some cool defense and some weird stuff came up because the one player went through a gravity rift and he was coming at me and then he showed up with half of his fleet. Yeah. The game is good enough. Yeah. But what it creates, it's a story that I love telling where we were on the obligatory pizza phase. Where we were just chilling, doing whatever, and our one friend went outside to smoke, and I said, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, whatever. And I walked out of the room, walked past the bathroom, walked out my house, went all the way around to where my friend was smoking, and made a deal with him on the porch. How many games are you realistically gonna do that? Yeah. Because how many games have the scope and the length where a deal made in hour 4 isn't going to pay off till hour 9.
Yeah.
And I understand just that phrase, hour 4 to hour 9, is going to turn off a lot of people. And I get it.
And being a person who doesn't like that style of game, let me tell you, if you are still listening now that we are at our number 1, and we're at Mark's number 1, if you get with people that you enjoy hanging out with, it makes it worth it. Because the whole thing is we did a lot of gameplay, but we also did a lot of commiserating as just friends.
A lot of talking, a lot of jokes.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff comes out of it.
And that's the other reason of why you play games is to sit there and be with your community, with your people, and sit there and talk smack, but also, how was your week? You look tired. What's going on? And then hey, if you need my help. And we were a bunch of guys and we're all sitting there talking about, hey, are you doing okay? Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm sending all this stuff at you. Yeah. But how you
ignore the fleet on the way.
Yeah, ignore the fleet on the way, but
how's your mom?
Yeah, how's your mom doing?
And I think that's because that's the other part that I think TI has some deep social attachment for me, even beyond that. And it's why, even though I only play it once a year, and I've only played it 5 times, I have played TI more than almost any other game in my collection, just on the sheer length of the game. Mm-hmm. But when it comes down to it, my wife, who is a saint and a hero, takes our boys, and she lets me have that day. And my best friend, his wife, lets him come. And another guy, his wife says, I will take the kids. And we all understand the liminal space that we are sitting in for that day. And it doesn't matter anything else, but we are there to figure out what's going on the table and just have a great time doing it.
Yep.
I struggle to keep it as my number 1 sometimes because I only play it once a year. It is so big. It's an event. Maybe it should just be listed as 0 on my list, but there's just nothing like it.
Yeah.
I love Eclipse. Eclipse is nothing like Twilight. It's not.
Yeah. Twilight Imperium is definitely one of those games where you want to play it, and it is. And it was the reason why when I played it last year, I was so mad at the person sitting next to me because he decided in the 11th hour that he was going to mess me over. And I was like, why? What did you nothing in the rankings? And that's why I was mad.
Yep.
And I'm still mad because Petty is my middle name. But it was when it was announced that we were doing it again this year, and I was like, okay.
We had a guy join us that I haven't seen him since the last time we played it, but he's like, "Oh, we're playing? Yeah, I'm in."
Yeah.
It's that type of game.
Mm-hmm.
So
find yourself 6 of your closest friends and
find 5 to 7 of your closest friends.
Yeah.
I do really like the Prophecy of Kings expansion. I like everything it adds. I don't think it is an overwhelm of complexity. It's more, certainly, if you're already playing the game, it's not going to change your mind. If you don't like Twilight, you're not going to like Prophecy of Kings. If you like Twilight, you're going to like Prophecy of Kings.
Yeah.
Well, with that is the supplemental top 10 we had for our episode 0. Thanks so much for coming along, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're definitely happy to have you with us, and lists like these will pop up every once in a while, and we'll bring in our friends.
What we're planning on is every 5th episode, so 5, 10, 15, etc. That'll be a top 10 like this. Otherwise, and so it'll be a little bit of a longer episode. Otherwise, we're trying to shoot for like that 40 to 55 minute range for episodes, that type of stuff.
Yeah, since this is a thing that we are very passionate on, we tend to be a little long-winded, hence why this one is as long as it is. Because of course, we're going to be like, oh, I didn't even think about that, and want to talk about the reason why we like something or why we agree or disagree with a person's choice. These are our opinions, and you can choose to go, okay, this makes sense, because I mean, I'm going to talk to you more emotionally as to why I like something, and Mark will definitely have a little bit of emotion, but he'll definitely have a little bit more
lot more logic,
a lot more logical reasons why he enjoys stuff. And so, just give us a listen and make your own opinion.
Within a short amount of time, we are setting up the Discord server now. We have the email address set up. If you'd like to contact us, give us any comments at this point, it's boredallthetimegaming@gmail.com. That may shift into its own domain at some point, but for now, as we're just testing the waters on all this, I really hope we get a opportunity to build a neat community here, because I will say, through the pandemic, board gaming really got me through, and being part of a couple of communities really helped through that. And at this point, I am so deeply entrenched inside of the All You Can Board community and their Discord. I love those guys. They're great. Again, not really connected to them outside of just being a probably overly frequent poster in the Discord. But, go shout them out. Go find them. Hopefully that's something else that we'll be able to do on the podcast, is spotlight some other creators. But I have found a lot of solace through that community, and hopefully at some point maybe you find that with us.
Yeah, and for me, with being in board games, it's just one of those things to deepen the relationships with the people that I have in my life, and then also forge new relationships. It's why I go down to Gen Con all the time. It's why I play new games. It's because I'm going to meet new people and have a new shared experience with them. And so come along with us. You can sit in the co-pilot seat while we're dragging you along and talking to you about the things that we love.
Well, Scott, at this point, I'm pretty bored of this.
I'm pretty bored of this too, and I'm seeing a lot of beautiful boxes with some fantastic games.
Let's go play some games.